We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180. Our guest by phone, the Regional Director for the National Right to Life, Brian Johnston. So, Brian, this SB 1338, which is a bizarre bill, who should people contact to try to defeat this thing, or let their assemblymen and senators know?
Yes, you definitely. Right now, it's going to go to the floor of the Senate, and so I want to encourage folks. You can just go to the Senate website or the California Pro-Life website and link to your state senator and let them know. I know that most of the listeners to your program really care about this. And even though this seems greased, it looks like this is going to go through, they still need to hear from you because this is an election year. Mm-hmm. And as it says, if they can't see the light, eventually you have to make them feel the heat. And so that's what elections are about, but they need to know that we're watching.
And this is a particularly scary election because here in California, because if we lose 3 more seats, we become... we're just basically out of the picture entirely because, then they've got a 2/3 majority and they can get anything through they want, and all we can do is just give lip service to protesting what's going on up there.
That's right. I mean, you do feel like a voice in the wilderness here, and you're exactly right, Marty. Part of it, I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people who should be involved aren't. They think it's too complicated. They think that, I'll just pray about this, which I encourage prayer. Mm-hmm. But we need to work as well, and I think that it's very important that we be citizens. Yeah. That what we don't want pro-life people to go out and do kooky things. I've had people say that, I can't carry signs. I feel uncomfortable. What we're asking you to do is be a citizen. Yeah. I'm asking you to be an American citizen, understand what's happening to your laws, and speak up with your citizens' rights, and particularly at the voting booth. And if you care about it and tell your friends, you'll make a difference. Mm-hmm. That's what the other side's doing. Exactly. They're involved in the process. If we get involved, we can make a difference.
Yes, definitely. So Romney, who obviously looks like he's going to be the nominee, is he pro-life? Is he just flip-flopping for the convenience of trying to get the conservative vote, or is he truly pro-life?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's very important to look at this in perspective. And I'll just a little caveat here before I start. Actually, personally, he wasn't my favorite in this go-around. However, I think we have to look at history and look at what's gone on. I actually, as a man from California, was lectured to by other pro-life people how Ronald Reagan was for pro-abort, and that we shouldn't support Ronald Reagan because he signed in 1967 as governor the law which loosened abortion restrictions in California. And when I said, but now he's pro-life, he regrets that. Yeah, he's a flip-flopper. And one of the hallmarks, and again, I'm saying this as somebody who personally, I supported somebody else in the primary, but I know what the battle's about. And the reality is that you can't always choose your generals. That, there have been some great generals in history, but just because you don't like the personality of your general doesn't mean you don't go to war. And my friends, we're at war, the war of ideas. And in this war of ideas, it's not mere metaphor to say that lives are at stake. If we don't win in November, I fear for our nation. I fear for the implications that has, obviously for our nation, but clearly for the cause of life. It's very important that we defeat Barack Obama. And Mitt Romney has made solid commitments. Now, you can say he said things in the past. We know that. And I have to tell you, we do accept converts. And if we want to start questioning just how pure ideologically he is, it's easy to find fault. And I have to tell you, I'm personally, again, I'll speak personally, I believe the Bible is the Word of God. But this isn't about my theology. And this isn't about his theology. And in fact, I think I know the other side. I know that the Democrats are going to start attacking Mr. Romney's theology. I think it's important for us then to talk about Mr. Obama's theology, because his theology is one of government, big government, and it has some insidious implications because of Mr. Reverend Wright's influence on his view of government. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know this is going to be an incredible battle. And again, it's a battle of ideas. I want to urge you, if you're a listener and you're pro-life, to look at the long run. Don't be pulled aside, because the fact is, unless the right ideas win, I think our nation is going to go into a very dark era of government control of all aspects of our life. We're already seeing that, and this is when he's been restricted by the good guys in Congress right now. So it could get very, very bad if there's a re-election of Barack Obama.
Oh, no question about it. We're having a conversation with Brian Johnston, Regional Director for the National Right to Life.
You know, Brian, when Obama was a senator in Illinois, and you had a baby that was aborted and born alive, he would let that baby sit on a counter and refuse to give it medical attention and let it die.
That's
now,
exactly right.
When you compare that to California with the prisoners on death row, we won't even give them a legal injection because it's cruel and unusual punishment. And what a difference when you look at those two examples. And if we leave Obama in there, we're in extremely deep trouble. Even under Obamacare, he said that abortions would not be covered, but yes, they are covered. As they take the money away from the seniors and give it to the people that want to do abortions. So, as you pointed out, this country is in deep trouble. So, what are the options? So, we're not really happy with Romney, but would we be happy with Obama?
I want to clarify, Clay. Actually, I am, because here's the nature of politics. It is a battle of ideas. And so what we're nominating through the nomination process is who will be our general, who is going to carry the banner for us. It doesn't mean he's going to be my pastor. It doesn't mean that all of his past is what's at stake. What's at stake are the ideas that must be fought for. So, you know, I know, let's look at history. I mean, we can look at history. I know that people familiar with World War II, and by the way, I'm really glad you brought up the World War II monument. That's, my dad actually was involved in the English Army. And something that we know in World War II is that General Montgomery was loved by his troops, but also hated by some of the same troops. And over here in the States, we love to mock Montgomery. And so we can say, hey, Montgomery wasn't that great a general. Well, the reality is, when we have an election for president, that person is carrying the banner for us. But the battle is greater than that person. And I think it's so unwise to start complaining about our nominee. I actually like Mitt Romney. And I think he now is understanding and elucidating the principles. And I think a good one is that Obama is bringing us a government-centered society. And what Romney wants to restore is a society that is centered on human lives. And that's very, very important. That is the classic distinction in the nature of government. And that's what's at stake. We will either have a government-centered society or a human being-centered society, and that's going to be determined in November. Mitt Romney stands for life.
Yeah, very, very well put. Listen, Brian, I after knowing you for 20-some-odd years, I have to tell you this is the first time I disagree with you on something.
Okay.
My dad was in the Canadian Army, and I don't like Montgomery. I think.
Oh no, I didn't say I liked him either. No, that was my point. No, that's exactly my point. I didn't like Monty either. He was a caricature, and one of the points is that nevertheless we had to stop Hitler.
That's true.
Those people serving under Montgomery didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to put down my guns now."
Yeah,
because Montgomery has a big nose and talks funny,
right,
and is full of himself. I'm not going to fight Hitler.
Yeah, I think Market Garden. No, I agree with you. I think Market Garden was a mistake.
Huge mistake.
And I don't like what he did to Eisenhower when he went out to see him years after the war was over. But anyways, but no, I agree with your point.
He was a poser, as they say.
Yes,
Montgomery was a big poser.
Well, listen,
but our enemy was Hitler. And
yes,
that's important. That we need to understand the nature of battle, and we need to understand that we are in a battle right now, in the battle of ideas. So we're not using guns, thank God. But it's just as important that we win these political battles because policy is decided by politics.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I totally agree. Before we've got about 2 minutes before the break, and then we want to go into talk about LifeFest. But I don't know if you remember this story, but when you and I had our first interview 20-some-odd years ago, there was a story, and I remember doing a lot with this particular story. There was a woman who had twins, and one of them, with about 2 months left, had to be delivered. And I remember we were talking about the fact that the woman, the child in the womb could be aborted, but if the child out of the womb were killed, it would be murder. So the only difference was the residency of the child. The one in the womb was less protected than the one outside of the womb. In the last 20 years, and in about a minute that we have left in this segment, Brian, have the laws changed to the point where that child would be protected in the womb in that situation or not? Would that child be less protected now than he was 20 years ago?
That's exactly right. And Clay referred to this, and Clay, by pointing out what Senator Barack Obama did, is pointing out a move in the direction of medicine at large, and a lot of people don't see this, is that we are moving now towards what Peter Singer, who is a philosopher, has already put out there and is part of medical journals and philosophy journals, that a child not be given rights until it's taken home from the hospital, because if there's problems, it's going to cost money. And that's what we see in Obamacare as well, the same worldview that, hey, you don't spend money if it's quote-unquote going to be wasted on somebody that doesn't really matter. And so, ironically, from that case, Marty, it's now the child outside the womb that is also at risk because of the loss of the right to life. So what happened in legalized abortion wasn't just that young babies being killed, is that the values on which our nation was built have been lost. And so the elderly and the handicapped and the affirmed and the newborns that have any disability, they're at equal risk now if this culture gets its way. We must stand up. And that's what Obamacare is doing. Obamacare is going to ration care, and it's going to make those very babies outside of the womb also at risk.
It's scary. Brian, when we come back, let's talk a little bit about LifeFest.
Sounds great.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.